made for If Nevermore. And then I'm going to talk about them. And you're going to listen. And then we're going to listen to the 4 brand new songs that I have included on this addendum. What You Sow, Skinny Loser, and Mascara, I shot with Sterling LaRose in the span of maybe over a week. We shot every single scene for all 3 videos. Some scenes were for one video. The other, we shot like a TV show, essentially. It was intense. It was crazy. So fucking fun. What You Sow is probably one of the toughest videos for me to shoot. It was just incredibly intense, whether it be me playing the organ spastically on a completely detuned vintage organ in a song that already has a microtonal in between key. It was very difficult for me as I depend entirely on relative pitch. Or the hypothermia I essentially contracted in that tub of pink Nesquik. That I got hypothermia. That was real. My toes turned purple. We shot in ice cold water diluted in Nesquik for an hour, and I kept pushing for it because I wanted as much as I could out of this dunk tank filled with pink. And it got to the point where I got really warm. Apparently that's one of the telltale signs. I ran to the bathroom and I looked at my lips. They were completely purple. And that was when I just started not remembering things. And they sent me back to the hotel and I turned the heat up. I cranked it to like 80 something degrees. They had Fahrenheit. I shot this in Vancouver. Sorry, that's non-chronological. And I tried not to fall asleep because apparently when you fall asleep with hypothermia, that's when it gets bad. Anyways, yeah, that's a good anecdote from... Yeah, anyways, this is What You Sow. So I lose myself before I lose you. Don't let me taste your bittersweet. Our addiction is one I can't keep. You reap more than what you sow. I lose myself before I lose you. Don't let me taste your bittersweet. Our addiction is one I can't keep. Amygdala, why can't you sleep? I'm filled with foreign chemistry. My appetite has yet to cease. My dissonance grows loud. When our love should fade, the heartstrings start to fray. There's no search, you look great. So I lose myself before I lose you. Don't let me taste your bittersweet. Our addiction is one I can't keep.
keep. You're in more than what you sow. I lose myself before I lose you. Don't let me taste your bitter sweet. Our addiction is one I can't keep.
I started Skinny Loser when I was 18 years old. It was the first divergence into alternative or emo rock, or at least my first attempt at it was just MIDI drums and MIDI guitar. And this was happening during a time when I made Cradles and Freak, literally the 17 and 18. And I just wanted something a little more visceral from myself, but it had never come out with any of the projects. I felt like this was a perfect song to come back to with my senses for the conceptualization of this new album that was authentic to me. It was interesting because it took on a completely different form than how it started when I realized how badly I wanted to inflect sort of a post-punk homage to like the gothicism that I was pulling from in the first place that I wasn't even aware of subliminally. I think the music video reflects that entirely. It paints this picture of anger and self-loathing. I mean, just trash piles and just body dysmorphia, and in a way that I feel like only I could tell it. It's one of my favorite music videos that I've ever made.
From the school, forgotten as a fool. Woke up when the sun set, this cobwebs on the shoes. Trapped in my purgatory with nothing to lose but my mind and my sense of time melting confused. And they do it all again too. They're kill myself in my own room. I don't wanna know what we can say. I don't wanna know what I've been saying. And they do it all again too. Can't find every girl I want to.
in the ways that Skinny Loser delivered a sort of body horror aesthetic, I felt as though Mascara did similarly, but instead of self-loathing or resentment, it was more a form of lust, giving parts of yourself away to people who may not have deserved it, but just generally this snowball of self-esteem, betrayal of just biology, and just strangeness to sexuality. Here's Mascara.
Come here, teach me what I can learn. Your tears eat me whole. I deserve disgust to be perverted by you. I cannot contain myself. My tongue sleeps when your eyes go red, like rum, sweet before the descent. You speak things I don't want to hear, but now you've lost your facade. Can't look at you, no, not at your face. Keep hearing your breath increasing its pace. Mascara particles, you're killing my brain. You're killing my brain. You're killing me. You kept a dirty secret since the start, and now you're finally clean. And now I'm taking a pill for somebody else's fucking ripe disease. And we laid in bed for 6 nights, lost all virginity, got drunk and fucked until we cried, and sucked face like a leech. Can't look at you, no, not at your face. Keep hearing your breath increasing its pace. Mascara particles, you're killing my brain. You're killing my brain. You're killing me now. Can't look at you, no, not at your face. Keep hearing your breath increasing its pace. Mascara particles, you're killing my brain. You're killing my brain. You're killing me now.
See Myself was written when I was 18. It was originally supposed to come out with Spring Fever as singles leading into Sick of You, and then we were going to figure out how to roll out Cradles. But I decided to just bust the door down with Cradles because I knew that song was a banger. See Myself was one of those moments where I was like, I wish this did come out back then. But the beat was very different. It was more like trip hoppy, whereas I made it 4 on the floor when I reinvented it in 2022 when I was on a ton of shrooms. I love that song. It's very much like still resonates with me today. The music video for that was pretty rushed, not gonna lie. I was incredibly sick. I think I had the flu. They glazed me up and took away my eyebrows. And Sterling had a really interesting idea for this Zolly movement that was constantly going with a robot arm that we ended up getting a deal on. And I wanted to do some like microorganism stuff. So we got someone who had a whole setup for like microscopic visuals, fluid visuals, and I felt like it painted a really wonderful picture for what the song was trying to convey. I loved the strobes that we were using. That was kind of very much a new thing for suburban, but it was something I've always just been drawn to because of the electronic aspect of my music. I look back on that video fondly because it was the first time we really did like a stripped down set and a very pure concept rather than a bunch of gags that are spectacles that you throw at the audience. This is just like me performing glazed up. Here's See Myself.
I don't wanna see myself. I don't wanna see myself. I don't wanna see myself. I don't wanna see myself. I don't wanna say things that I might regret. I'll just keep my mouth shut till I'm not a threat. Tell me that I'm rotten, rotten to the core, but I don't wanna be this anymore. I don't wanna see myself. 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 I don't wanna say things that I might regret. I'll just keep my mouth shut till I'm not a threat. Tell me that I'm rotten, rotten to the core. No, I don't wanna be me anymore.
Make Me Forget was also a completely unplanned single because I started that song around the time we were filming What You Sow and Skinny Loser and Mascara. I thought of it as like a single that would follow up the album because I wanted it to be a sister song to What You Sow with that sort of swung four on the floor. But by the time Skinny Loser came out, I was like, oh shit, it's it's been a second since I've released music. I need to come back a little bit harder. When we were conceptualizing the music video for it, I was very clearly like giving this night city vibe, but I actually wanted to fight that instinct, and immediately I think I was driving by on a highway and I saw like one of the oil pumps with the little hammer on it. And I'm like, I want like a frozen Western for some reason. So that's what it turned into. We drove up to British Columbia from Vancouver with a very small team, rented out a cabin. I don't know why I consistently put myself in cold challenges, but British Columbia was tough during the middle of January. I didn't have, with the wardrobe that I was given, that both me and Riley, my co-star, were given. We were not built for the actual harsh winter. We had to put like hand warmers in the toes of our boots to keep our toes from freezing off. We were actually like lighting fires on set. Like every fire that you see in the video was like genuinely had a purpose. Essentially we just actually went camping. It was sick. It was so peaceful. I remember hearing like the complete silence when I went for a piss up the snowy hill away from
hand sabotaged through the blood, hoarding the flesh in the way that it was to be started. The notes that preserve our love. I want you to make me forget. I want you to make me forget who I am tonight. Think about it sometimes. The way your words can itch my ears. And if I know you never mind the misalignment in your tears, because I hardly touched you. Your skin's too hard to leave a puncture, and in a crux it becomes slugs again. Guess your name and mine just don't die. The less I say, the more you confide. And this whole shame of mine can float to top, to the top. I want you to make me forget who I am tonight. I want you to make me forget who I am tonight. I want you to make me forget who I am tonight. I want you to make me forget who I am tonight. I want you to make me forget who I am tonight. I want you to make me forget who I am tonight.
Hello again. When I and this happens with every single album, but when I finished If Nevermore, there were some songs that I felt were supposed to be on the album, but I just couldn't figure them out yet. Throughout the creation of If Nevermore, there were many long creative blocks that I had to drill my way through. Every single time there was a different life event that created some sort of barrier to accessing myself. Hereith kind of came from one of those last blocks. One night, I was on a lot of psilocybin, and I laid a mattress down in my studio. Not this studio, it was an older studio. And I turned the heat up all the way, took off all my clothes, and just started playing Japanese classical composers and conductors, and just was looking for progressions that I hadn't heard in the music that I personally was consuming. I was just looking for something. And then I realized very quickly, like, how often I'm being blasted with walls of notes, and how I'm not the one writing the melodies. And I think everybody who's in my position can connect with this idea, but I am borrowing from something that already exists. Let's call it the aether. I think that was a very freeing experience when I realized, like, I don't have to be self-referential anymore. I don't have to be derivative of my own established style, because it never was that way. And I think there's certain melodies and certain progressions that I'll always be drawn to. And it was a very freeing moment where it took the responsibility off of my shoulders and made it just creation from love. I flew out to Paris. It was my first time in Paris. No, it was my first time in Europe, actually. I've never been to Europe. I flew out there for 2 days to rent out a whole castle, a bunch of strange sculptures and materials, and we shot 555 and Hereith with the incredibly talented Anton Reva. Actually, this shoot, I think, maybe was the most physically intense shoot I've ever done. which is crazy when we're admitting that I had hypothermia or filmed in the dead winter of British Columbia, because this one was the first time I actually embraced movement from myself. Anton gave me a great stage to do that. I felt as though everybody in the room was creatively aligned in a way that I had never felt before. Maybe that's just the Europeans. Maybe that's my French Canadian blood boiling within me. But I just felt really, really in the right place when I shot that video. And it was very new to me because this was the first time I was not doing the creative direction for the video. I felt very creatively aligned with Anton before we met. I felt very free to just be the performer on a stage that was already built rather than building the stage and being the performer. And the songs were just also very, very dancey, very new compared to what was on If Nevermore. Hereith and 555 I felt as though could have been on a new project, but I felt like 555 had enough of this grounded feeling that was present in the previous If Nevermore songs. So I thought it was a good way to wrap the deluxe.
Can't tell if it's you that I miss when we're apart. All I want is something green in the city that I've never been in. How the air smells at times before you claim. Oh, is it always this way? Oh, did something change? Oh, is it always this way? Oh, you gave me a word I can give you. Am I loose enough? Do I miss you? You in the tower on the hill, reminiscent. You remind me of her, the lore you sing, to be nurtured and hiding omniscient. Kept selling the walls the more you drink. Calling my name, you called my name. You calling my name. Oh, you gave me a word I can give you. too much. She spun a web and I'm the trophy. And I'm the trophy.
Lord of Nothing was actually one of the original concepts that came in 2022 when I was coming up with the reinvention of Skinny Loser. That was actually like intended to be on If Nevermore the whole time. But I couldn't find a way to deliver it. It never sounded right until after I released the album, and I was like, now I know what to do for it. So that was one of the first ideas for the deluxe was to bring back Lord of Nothing.
think it's time. I think it's time for you to leave. I think it's time.
Chemical Coffins I wrote like during COVID. That was supposed to be on Hive, but I honestly felt it was too vulnerable to align with any of the songs on Hive besides maybe like the very end of Hedon. But it aged in a way that was kind of interesting to me. The production isn't my best, but the writing and the feeling of it, they evoke the same visceralness that's present in 555, Hearith, and Lord of Nothing. Just generally, this addendum was a very sort of mentally violent experience that I just threw onto the canvas, and I'm glad it's out there with If Nevermore.
I don't have a minute for emotion, catalyst for anybody but myself. There's no time, there's no more time, there's no time, there's no more. You are not the constant, I mean it. This is not cathartic, I feel cheated. There's no time, there's time, there's no time, there's no more. I think that I'm rotting inside myself. Chemical coffins, course conveyor belts. There's no time, there's no time, there's no more. Circling on metropolis, I'll discard my dichotomy to more. Suppressing my disease to be used by the ugly and bored. Cog in the machine, no, I can't feel it. Extremities dissolved in the dark beneath this power. Won't atrophy, shoot my chain expression ceased fire. I won't feel a thing, no, I won't feel it.
I want to thank everybody for coming to this stream, to listen to the new songs, to reflect on the old. I'm going on tour this fall, September, October. It's a headliner. It's my own tour. You should look for a city near you that I'm playing at. I'm excited to play the new songs, some newer songs, and some classics. I hope to see you there. Thank you.